Hey everyone, welcome to Pinterest for Business Part 4. Today we're going to be talking all about these group boards that we've kind of put off for a while, talking about the advanced baseline tactics. We've covered pretty much everything as far as like the foundational blocks for building a baseline within the last two parts. If you have any questions about that, please feel free. If you're still not clear on things, please feel free to reach out to me or comment even on this video link. That's fine. But today we're going to kind of move forward. We're going to talk about group boards, and that's going to segue a little bit into maintenance. I'll touch on a couple tools that we will be talking more about in the last part of this series. There is an additional video in addition to these slides that is going to be a screen share within Pinterest. So make sure you look for that video as well. That video link should be attached to this the post with this video link. So just make sure that you check that out too. All right, moving on. So when people talk to me about group boards, typically I get a lot of questions, but they're slightly confusing and people don't understand, what the purpose of them is. So we're going to walk through group boards addressing the most common questions that I get about them. So like, why should you join them? How often do you have to pin to them? Do you only pin your stuff, or do you need to pin other people's stuff too? Do you have to pin from the group board to other boards that you own? How many do you need? How do you even find them? How do you know if it's a good board to join? Not all the group boards are created equal. Some of them are really terrible. How do you start your own, and why would you start your own? We're going to dive right in and talk first about why should I join group boards? Well, the number one reason to join a group board is to help spread your content and extend your pin's reach. So if you think about how Pinterest works, not including search, typically, just the exposure that your pins get to your followers. You pin something and your followers see it, and then your followers can also have the potential to see it in their smart feeds because your followers, follow you. So it's sort of like a phone tree kind of thing. If they actually pin the item, then your followers will definitely see it, and then it keeps going on to their followers. So it's a big sort of like telephone tree. So that's what it would look like if you didn't join any group boards at all. That's the pin exposure that you would get, not including like showing up in Smart Feed as a recommended pin to people that you're not connected to yet, and not including people searching and finding you that way, like within a search result. But if just literally putting stuff on your boards, that's the exposure that you would get. If when you join group boards, you get all that original exposure, but then when you share it to a group board, you share it over here to this group board, all the collaborators on that group board will see it. They don't have to be following you. They just have to be additional collaborators to that group board. They will see it. And then their followers and their followers can see it. And so you're upping that exposure. And then also it gives the potential for other people that you're not connected to pin it. There's just another way for your content to be seen and get found. Again, this isn't including search or recommended pins to other people by Pinterest. This is just, I pin it, who sees it kind of thing. When you pin it by yourself, it's going to be your followers and your followers. And then if they actually pin it, it grows from there. And then if you join group boards, you're also exposing your content to all those contributors, all those collaborators on that group board, their followers and their followers. Okay. Clear as mud? Okay, moving on. So, how often would you need to contribute to a group board? Say you joined a group board, well, that sounds good. I understand increasing my exposure, but is this going to be a lot of extra work? Is it going to be extra maintenance? How active do I have to be? Group boards are only as useful as you are active on them. You can join 1,000 group boards, and if you don't do anything to them and you don't share anything on them, they're absolutely useless. They're just sitting on your profile doing nothing. But how often would you need to contribute? Many boards have pin limits, so you have to check the rules of each board. There is no standardized format for a group board other than that has contributors. Multiple people can pin on it. That's the only standard thing about a group board. Everything else is left up to the creator of the group board. So they might post rules within the pin description, like don't pin more than 2 pins per day, or don't pin more than 5 within an hour, or whatever. So you have to check the rules of each board that you join or you're interested in joining. If the board says it has no limits, you should still practice some etiquette here and not spam the board. You don't want to, dump 10 pins on a board in one day and then not do anything the next day, or do 10 pins every day. That's a little spammy. So you want to sort of base it off how many pins are on the board. If it's a really small group board, it's just started, doesn't have very many contributors, to avoid showing up and annoying people and potentially getting kicked off the board as a spammer, you might stick to 1 pin per day. 200 to 500 pins, 2 per day. 500 to 1,000 pins, 3 per day. 1,000 to 5,000, about 4 per day. And if there's more than 5,000 pins on the board, you absolutely need to pin 5 per day because you're just going to get lost otherwise. And that's not spammy at that point. So the whole point of pinning more, the more pins there are on the board, is we're assuming that these larger boards are more active. And thus those pins are going to move faster down towards the bottom of the board. So you need to pin more each day in order to up your chances of getting seen so that you're one tiny little pin. If you're pinning one tiny little pin into a pool of 5,000 and hundreds of pins are being added every day, you're going to get lost. So the bigger the board is, the more pins on there. You just add more pins per day based on how big the board is. Some boards are ridiculous. I mean, they have hundreds or 63,000 or whatever pins on it. And that's absolutely insane. But I still wouldn't recommend pinning 10 per day. I'd just understand that you're going to get lost in those kind of boards. And I honestly avoid boards that are that huge, unless they're really, really great and everybody on there is getting all kinds of repins. We're going to talk about that in a second. Okay. Regardless of the limits, pin at least once per day to each group board that you join for best results so that you're showing up with something of your own at least once per day. Because that pool of pins on that group board, like I said, is constantly rotating. Things are getting pushed to the bottom. Yada, yada. Okay. So do you need to pin only your stuff to the group boards? Well, if you have lots of original content, you can get away with pinning only your own stuff. That's okay. I mean, it's absolutely okay. That's what group boards are there for. Everybody's using it to promote their own stuff. It's absolutely okay to pin only your own content, provided you can do that every day, and you need to have lots of content in order to be able to do that. You can, if you have still a lot of content, but maybe you have some days where you can't quite come up with something of your own to pin to that board, you can pin other people's content to that board. You can also duplicate your own pins, like you can repin something to the same board again to fill in the gaps, and I'll mention that again here in a second when we get down to the bottom of the slide, but you don't want to do that too soon, like too many days in a row. Like I wouldn't do it within the same 3 or 5 day span, depending on how fast that feed is moving. If you have some original content, but you don't have a whole lot, like you have a good amount, but you don't have like an overwhelming amount, like you feel like you're never going to run out. You will probably want to alternate between your own content and repinning other people's content as filler. And the only reason, like I know I just said the point of group boards is to promote your own content and get your own stuff seen and gain exposure. But even if you're not pinning your own content to that group board, if you're pinning other people's content, it still shows up as pinned by you, and it still redirects to your own account. So it still is showing up, like your account is showing up. It might not be your content, but your account is showing up on that board, and people can still follow it back to you and then become a potential follower where they will see your other stuff. So it's sometimes important to use other people's content as filler just to show up and stay active on the boards. If you have very, very little original content, you'll need to use mostly repins of other people's content. And you can add your own content as often as you can. Create new pins for the same links to bulk up your available content pool. That's a common strategy. Everybody, I don't know if I've said that before, but if you are limited in the amount of pieces that you have, or or content that you can put out, you can always create multiple images, multiple different pin images that link to the same place. That's perfectly fine. It's absolutely recommended. It's a common strategy. So you could have one piece of furniture and 5 different pins that look different but go to the same place. That's fine. And then that would count as 5 different pins, and you could pin one of those on 5 different days to that group board. No big deal. And like I said, you can repeat the same pin to a group board, but avoid repinning your own content and duplicate too much too soon on the same board. And that'll just depend on how fast the board's feed is moving. Another thing I will say is that if you truly have very little original content, you can't create new pins, for your pieces, for your own content, then you may hold off on joining group boards until you have a little more, because they are important. But if you truly have that little content, you probably should focus on bulking up your content before you focus on trying to get what you do have spread around on group boards. I'll just say that. Okay. So, do I have to pin from the group boards I belong to? It's absolutely not required to pin from any group boards that you belong to unless the board rules say so. So if the board rules say you must pin 2 pins for every one that you add or whatever, then you should probably do that, because if they're checking and moderating and they see that, things aren't getting pinned, or you're especially if you're dumping a whole lot of pins on that board, you can get kicked off. And group boards are hard enough to join, so to get invites to, so you really don't want to get kicked off of a group board. However, so it's not required unless the board rules say so. However, group boards can be easy ways to find that supplementary content for your other boards. So group boards typically encompass some sort of niche or some specific topic, just like any other board. They just have multiple people pinning to it. So it can be an easy way to go to that group board. Say you need some pins for your kitchen inspiration board. Well, if you belong to a home decor board or a specific kitchen group board, you can always browse that group board for content to repin to your own things. Pinning other people's content has the potential to attract that person as a new follower, because they see that you've pinned, or you've pinned several of their things. And they're like, oh, who's pinning my stuff? And they go check you out. So it's sort of good etiquette to pin from group boards if you're going to put things on it, but it's absolutely not required. And if there's just nothing on that group board that is repinnable to your target market, then you might reconsider whether you need to be on that group board to begin with. Because if most of the content doesn't fit with your target market, then do you think your content's going to fit on that group board very well? Or is it reaching the people, the target people that you want to reach? It sort of goes both ways. It's a two-way street. Okay, how many group boards do we need? So I kind of mentioned this in way back in part 1, but you don't want to have any more than 20 to 30% of your total board count. So for counts with only the baseline, that 12 to 18 that's recommended set up, that's going to be 2 to 5 group boards. Remember I said you don't need to worry about joining group boards right away. You can even go into maintenance phase without having group boards. That's okay. This is sort of an advanced feature, but it is important to add a few, when you can. So be looking, towards the end of when you have your baseline set up, be looking for group boards to join. But never join any more than you can maintain pinning to daily, because like I said, they're just going to sit on your account and they're not serving any purpose. They're messing up your aesthetic with the board covers that don't fit with your brand and your cohesive, prettiness that you have going on. And so they're pointless sitting on there. If you can't pin to them every day, or they don't fit with your content that you have to pin, then you don't need to be part of it. Not on a business account. Okay. How do we find group boards? Well, there is a website called pingroupie.com, which isn't often updated. It's still the best resource out there. There is no group board database like Universal Database. This is the best you have. So there is a tutorial at this YouTube link right here. I'll pop that into the post about this, the whole part 4 post as well, so you have that easier to click on. But this little, if you just copy and paste it to your browser, that'll work. But there's a tutorial that I made. It is about a year old, but it's still relevant. I watched it the other day to make sure it worked, and checked out PinGroupie, make sure nothing's changed, and it hasn't. I use it some, but I don't use it as much as I used to. Um, Other ways to find group boards is to check competitors, your followers, or other accounts with similar niche boards. And what I call this is like going down the rabbit hole. So basically, you're going to be following, and that's what the second video is going to be all about. Is this chain searching method of finding a board and following it to another person who follow it to another board and yada yada. We're going to have a whole video on it. Make sure you watch it because it's kind of confusing to explain in words. Another way is just simply to search for keyword terms and filter sort by boards and within Pinterest. But remember, that's only going to bring up boards with those specific keyword terms in the title. And you may not know that they're group boards, so you're just going to have to randomly click around and see if they're group boards and if they're worth joining. It's a frustrating way to search for group boards, but you can find some this way. One of my favorite ways to find group boards is Facebook groups dedicated to Pinterest group boards. There are two that I'm personally a part of. One, and they have the links right there. One's Pinterest group boards, and the other one is Pinterest group board ad. But if you join those boards, typically people are always posting like, I'm looking for contributors for this board, blah, blah, blah. The first one even has a document in the files that lists some group boards, and you can add your own group boards too if you ever start one within different categories. And you can also always make a post like, I'm looking to join this type of group board. Leave your links below and see if anybody comments and invites you. You will probably have to link to your own Pinterest profile so they can check you out and make sure that you are a good fit for their group boards. Most people aren't just going to invite you blindly. So if you make a post in those groups, you'll want to say, hi, I'm like, for me, I'd be like, hi, I'm Marissa from Blue Fairy Studios. I'm a Pinterest strategist, and here's my Pinterest profile. Put the link, and I'm looking to join social media tips and resources or social media blogging group boards, and see if anybody gives me links to join. Excuse me. Another way that I find group boards is I use Board Booster, which is a Pinterest scheduling tool. We are going to talk about that more in depth in the next part, as well as a couple other scheduling tools. But Board Booster has this great feature for top group boards organized by category. So you can go in and click on home decor, and it'll give you a huge list of top group boards and the repin rate and how many people belong to that board and yada yada. You can use these as starting points for the chain search method. Again, I'll go over that in the video, to follow those boards to new boards that may be good for you to join. Or you can also just look through that list and see if there's any that fit your brand and business and that you would want to join. You do have to belong to Board Booster in order to use this feature. I have a referral link at the end of the slideshow that you can use to check it out, and you get like a month free. Okay. How do we know? So we know how to find them, sort of. We know what to pin, how much to pin, why we should be on them. But remember I said that not all group boards are created equal. Not all group boards are good group boards to join. Some group boards are like pin dumping grounds. Like, for instance, Etsy. A lot of the Etsy boards are very much people just come and dump their products on there, and nobody ever really repins anything from them, which defeats the whole purpose of a group board. Because, and that's another reason why you want to repin other people's stuff, is to participate in the group board. But it sort of defeats the whole purpose because, you're spreading your exposure, and yes, the people on that board are going to see it and their followers are going to see it. But really what matters is repins and, saves and likes rather than views. So it's great that people are seeing it, and you can't possibly get a repin or a like without somebody seeing it. So you have to sort of do that extra exposure thing. But what you're really trying to get is those saves from people who aren't necessarily connected to you. And so if nobody's saving anything from the group board, then that group board's really not serving any purpose. It's just a dumping ground for pins. And they just sit there and they don't do anything. They don't go anywhere. And we want our pins to go somewhere. We want them to be shared. So how do we know it's a good group board? Well, a couple questions to ask yourself first would be, is it within my niche? Is my content going to fit in with the other content here? Would my target market hang out here? Is this a board my target market would be interested in? If not, then you probably don't need to be part of that group board. Does this board have a good following? And by a good following, I mean, do 23 people follow this board, or do a couple thousand people follow this board? You ideally want to join group boards that have at least 1,000 followers. If you join a group board that has 136 followers, that's good. I mean, I guess it's growing. It's probably a smaller group board. But you really want to join the ones that have a lot of followers, because more people are going to see it that way. Does the board seem active? You may need to watch the pin count. In addition to the following count, I'll tell you how many pins are on the board. When you look at that group board, actually click on it. You may need to watch the pin count for a few days to make sure it goes up enough. Like if it sits at 6,000 pins for 5 days, well, then nobody's pinning to it. But if it goes up like to 6.1 and, or maybe even 6,050 or whatever, and it's trending upwards and people are adding, especially if it has a lot of followers, people should be adding. Or, I mean, a lot of contributors, I'm sorry. People should be adding pins to this board. As long as it's active, that's good. And do the pins on this board get repinned? So remember I said the whole point of a group board is to ultimately get those saves and those repins. So if most or all pins have double-digit repins or more, it's a good board. If most pins have more than 1,000 repins, you definitely want to be on that board, because that's people are sharing those pins, and those are good, probably good quality pins that people are sharing, and you want to be on that board. Unfortunately, not all boards are going to be accepting contributors all the time. Not all of them will have rules or directions on how to join. So some of these boards that you really want to be part of, tough luck. You may not be able to join them. You can always try to message the person who owns the group board. It'll be the first circle, the first profile circle. Whoever owns that group board, that's their profile circle will be the very first one all the way to the left. You can click their name and then send them a message and tell them, hey, I'd like to join and join this group board, and then put the exact name of that group board down, and see if they'll send you an invite or respond. 80% of the time, they probably won't. So it can be frustrating to join those group boards that perform really well when they don't have any instructions on how to do so. But, just check back, or as you get bigger, sometimes those boards they invite people specifically. So you might just follow that person, follow that board, and you can hope for the best. But if they have instructions in the description, like sometimes they'll say email this email address, or send me a message, or follow the board and follow me and comment on a pin. So you just have to follow whatever the instructions say. Sorry, that was a little bit of a tangent. Anyway, getting back to this, if the pins on this board get repinned, so if they have more than 1,000 repins, then you definitely want to be on that board if you can be. And then if most pins only have single-digit repins, then you want to avoid this board, because it's not getting the repins that you really want. You don't need to join a group board that all the pins only have 2 or 3 repins. There's better group boards out there. Just take some time to find them. All right, how do you start your own group board? So you can go to any board that you already have already made and own, and click edit for that board. And then you just need to invite at least one other person. So you can invite them by email or by Pinterest username. And you would just type that name or email into the little bar here, and then it would send an invite. And then once they accept the invite, they're a contributor. You can also, a couple other things you want to do if you start your own group board, you might want to turn off these email in this edit panel. You can turn off email notifications, because otherwise you're going to get a notification every single time somebody saves a pin to that board, and that can be very annoying. And then you probably always want to turn off this let other collaborators add people. And that's just to prevent anybody adding spammers, if they want to join, they can send an invite or send a join request according to whatever rules you set up. So it's just not recommended to allow collaborators to add people, sort of like you wouldn't, personally wouldn't let anybody add people to my Facebook group. You're basically the admin of this board, and you want to moderate that and screen it and treat it as such. All right. Why would you start your own group board? Well, there's some pros and some cons to doing this. The pros to starting your own group board would be that you control it. You set the rules, the scope of the content, and you get to set that board cover so that it fits with all your other board covers. I know that seems like a really small thing, but it's really visually annoying when you have that one board in there that just breaks the nice prettiness of everything else. So being able to set that board cover is a pretty good pro. And then also, you control it. You don't have to be you don't have to behave by anybody else's rules. You make the rules. It also brings people to your page because people find your board, find their group board, they come to you. You don't have to go to them. You can be on this group board, share your own material because it's your board, and then people are going to come to you. They're going to come to your page, and that can be new followers because you can always make a requirement of joining the group board to follow you or follow the board or whatever, and so that's going to grow your following. You get all the other benefits of group boards relative to how many contributors you have. So your exposure, your pin exposure will grow as you gain more contributors to that group board. Some of the cons, it can be a slow process to get people to join. A lot of people don't want to join a group board that's brand new or if it belongs to an account that's not very well established. So part of having your baseline all set up is to help make you look really established, to help you be established quickly and get these followers and get this growth going. And that plays into the whole group board, especially if starting your own. People don't want to join if they don't feel like it's going to help them. So all the reasons I told you earlier to know whether it's a good group board. In order to get people to join the group board, you can promote the board on other social sites. You can promote your board in those Facebook groups I mentioned earlier. Your website, whatever. You can promote your group board and tell them to send an invite to join or whatever. You will have to moderate the board, like I said. Treat it as something that needs administration. You're the admin of this board. You'll have to moderate it, watch for spam, delete pins that don't fit in. And then there is no automatic system for adding contributors who request to join. Based on any rules that you set, regardless of the rules, you do have to manually add those contributors. So you have to go in, edit the board, add their email address or their Pinterest username in order to add all the contributors that want to join. So that can be sometimes time consuming in the process. All right. So that's everything about group boards. I think we covered it all. We're going to, like I said, go and have that other video that walks you through doing some of the group board search to find group boards. Because I love you guys so much, I've already done some of this for you. So I have 18 group boards to get you started. Those can be launch points to do more in-depth searching, or potentially you could check out those group boards if any of them look interesting to you and request to join. That is in a PDF in this link right here, which is a giant link, I know. It's also in the resources folder, and I will put a link in the post in the group as well. So it will be easier to access. Also, if you want to check out Board Booster, here's my referral link. Like I said, I think you get a month free. And Tailwind, also, you get a month free. Tailwind is another pen scheduling tool, which we will talk about more in depth next segment. But it has a really great feature that it can either supplement or to completely replace group boards for some people, depending on your brand and your business. But they have this feature called Tribes, which is a lot like group boards, but they're within Tailwind itself, not on Pinterest. So it's their little community set up within Tailwind. And so they might have a tribe for home decor or something like that you can join, and you add your pins to the tribe, and then people repin from the tribe to Pinterest. So it's sort of like built-in group boards to the scheduling tool. It can replace group boards, or some people use it in addition to joining group boards. So there's a referral link. If you want to check it out, you get a month free for that as well. All right. That is it for this video. I'm going to record the other one, and we will have that one set up, the link to that video with this video post within the group. And then there is a live Q&A after this video today on the 15th of February. And that'll be at 11 a.m. Central. Talk to you guys then. Bye.